Good morning, everyone. My name is Jemima, and today I'm going to talk to you about promoting open sharing of work in progress while preserving students' freedom to learn in the online studio. And I'm going to suggest some guiding principles for addressing the challenges and risks involved in supporting and encouraging students to share their work in progress, specifically in online learning spaces. And this topic is inspired by my learning design work that I'm currently doing with UAL, the University of the Arts London, co-designing fully online master's programs in creative arts subjects such as graphic design, which is why I use the term online studio. And I owe much of this presentation to insights I've gained from recent conversations with UAL colleagues, combined with some concepts from the wider education research literature. So what do I mean by open sharing of work in progress? Well, sharing work in progress with tutors and peers is a signature pedagogy of creative arts education in particular, which traditionally happens within physical studio spaces. And it can involve sharing things like unfinished or draft designs, sketches, workings, iterations, etc. And work in progress may consist of the documentation and annotation of messy creative processes. So, for example, using a sketchbook to capture creative ideas and concepts, noting down thoughts and reflections during that creative process. And in the physical art and design studio, students commonly take part in what are known as crit activities, where they review and critique their peers' creative work in progress. And when doing similar activities online, we could potentially use blogs, portfolios, collaborative boards such as Miro or Padlet, or even discussion forums. And importantly, one of the reasons why sharing work in progress as opposed to just completed work is such an important aspect of creative arts education is because it provides tutors with insights into students' creative process, which enable them to personalize their teaching and better support students to develop their practice. Much like formative or continuous assessment in any subject can provide more information about the students' learning progress and their process than the final outcome or finished product alone. So you might be wondering, why does all this matter and how is it relevant beyond the context of creative arts education? Well, it could be argued that process-orientated pedagogy of creative arts and documenting creative processes is becoming increasingly relevant in the age of AI. And there's certainly an identified need to implement assessment approaches that capture the development process rather than only evaluating the final product as a means of ensuring assessment validity and preserving academic integrity. And the upshot of this is that requiring students to share work in progress as evidence of the learning process is likely to become more common, not just in the creative arts, but across disciplines. And because this will inevitably also apply to online education, it's important for us to consider the unique nature and implications of sharing work in progress in online or digital spaces, including the specific challenges and risks this may involve. So thinking about the challenges then, one of the main potential challenges with the online sharing of work in progress in particular is making students feel sufficiently comfortable and confident to share their unfinished work with tutors and peers in online learning spaces. Students may feel pressurized to present their best self or best work, similar to how they might feel on social media. They may have concerns about permanent record or archive of their work remaining online. And it's arguably also easier for students to simply hide when they're online and avoid sharing altogether. So overcoming these barriers requires building a supportive, collaborative sharing culture that encourages creative experimentation and risk-taking and embraces failure. In other words, building a sense of solidarity and community rather than competitiveness. And it's obviously also crucial to foster a sense of trust and psychological safety in online learning environments through presence and connection. And presence may include social, teacher presence, but also importantly, emotional presence, which allows space for students to express their and share their emotions. That said, as digital education practitioners, we obviously know that all of this is complex and difficult to achieve. It's a gradual process that takes time and doesn't happen overnight. In terms of the risks surrounding the online sharing of work in progress, one significant risk is the potentially negative emotional and psychological impact of openly sharing and receiving feedback on unfinished work. This involves an inherent risk and vulnerability, especially when sharing with people you don't know, and can feasibly bring up feelings of anxiety, insecurity, or fear of being judged or criticised. And this risk may be particularly acute when sharing personal creative work that in some way represents or expresses your identity. And it's also important to recognise that there's an imbalance of power here between the person sharing their work and the person critiquing it and providing feedback, which can potentially increase feelings of vulnerability. And another risk is low or performative participation in sharing activities rather than spontaneously or authentically sharing your rough sketches, your messy drafts. And this could be a result of the emotional or psychological challenges I've just mentioned, pressure to present your best work, negative previous experiences, or barriers to inclusion, such as caused by having to use a particular tool or medium that you perhaps find difficult to work with. And additionally, students may experience communication difficulties and misunderstandings when giving and receiving feedback on their work, especially in an online asynchronous environment where there may be a lack of established interpersonal relationships or cues to aid communication, which could lead to feedback being misinterpreted. And this is even more likely to happen in intercultural communication, where students from different countries and cultures are interacting. Okay, so what
3 minutes left, Jemima.
Thank you. Thanks, Monica. What are some guiding principles we can adopt to adequately support students and mitigate these challenges and risks? So to start with, grounding our educational practice in a pedagogy and ethics of care is essential for supporting students with risks and potentially adverse impacts from sharing and receiving feedback on their work in progress. Not just through support with creative or academic work, but also by offering pastoral care and embedding a broader culture of care and compassion throughout the institution. One example of implementing a pedagogy of care in activities involving sharing work in progress is to ensure that the level of challenge or the expectations of the activity are appropriate for the stage of the course. So, for example, by starting with low stakes sharing activities in small groups to gradually build students' confidence and trust before expecting them to share their work more widely. And to encourage authentic as opposed to performative participation, it's important to emphasize the benefits of sharing and peer collaboration for learning and creative practice, and also articulate the value of education and creativity themselves as shared endeavors. And this may include accompanying shared activities with instructions that explain not only what to share and how, but also why, making sure that sharing activities are purposeful and educationally worthwhile, as opposed to merely obligating students to share their work in progress for arguably less pedagogically justifiable reasons, such as monitoring participation or checking that their work is actually their own, surveillance, you might call it. And it's also essential to provide a variety of sharing activities and opportunities with a balance of structure and agency to allow students freedom to learn in a way which suits them. Since too much structure could leave students feeling suffocated or over-monitored, while too little might leave them feeling lost or disengaged. And I'm aware I'm running out of time, but quickly,
1 minute, yes.
Running through a few ways in which we could do this. We could strike a balance between structure and agency by providing clear instructions using consistent structures or formats for sharing, while also offering optional, open-ended and flexible activities. And students should be able to choose the method, medium or tool by which they share and have the ability to edit or delete their work, etc. And finally, the development of feedback literacy should form an integral part of programmes that include regular sharing and peer review of work in progress to reduce instances of unhelpful or harmful feedback and equip both students and tutors with the skills to give feedback that's compassionate and constructive. Okay, I'll leave it there. Here are my references and acknowledgements. Thank you very much for listening to my presentation. I hope you found it of interest.